Across the Flow FM network, a Flow News 24 update.
And it's Wayne here at the Flow News desk, and we take a look today at the issue of Qantas or Qatar, the airlines dispute that has risen its head as a green paper has been released by the Australian Labor Party, and the government is putting forward its future view on the airline industry. But Catherine King, who is the minister, who had discussions with both the airlines, Qatar and Qantas, in the lead up to this paper, she says that body searches, these what they're called invasive body searches, were a factor in the decision on Qatar Airways flight rejections. That is, for Qatar Airways to have increased flights into Australia. She said that women being taken off the plane by gunpoint was a story that had been broken at the time. And she said, I have said repeatedly, I made this decision in the national interest, and there is no one factor that I will point to that swayed my decision on one way or the other. In making these decisions, I did have the national interest, not commercial interests at play when I was making that decision. Certainly for context, this is the only airline that has something like that happening. And so I can't say that I wasn't aware of it, but certainly if I wasn't, it wasn't the only factor, but it was a factor. And this becomes a significant question. If the government is rejecting Qatar for additional flights on the grounds of the way in which body searches on passengers have occurred, then surely they would ban all flights from that airline. Why would you say that we'll still allow some flights from that airline, but we won't let you increase your flights? It doesn't seem to make sense, that answer to me. It does seem to be putting it out into the media for a good position in order to get what might be a soft response, because it was a protection reason for women. I've no doubt that that's a very good reason for not allowing flights. I would then suggest that all flights wouldn't be allowed from the same airline, not by saying they can have reduced flights. It goes further to this because Qantas will now face a Senate inquiry, and this is important to recognise because Alan Joyce, who has finished up suddenly 2 months before he said he would finish, suddenly he finishes early. Yet now he will face questions in the Senate, and so will the new boss of the Qantas Airways, Vanessa Hudson. The Transport Minister, Catherine King, she's faced scrutiny in Parliament, but now we're going to hear a little bit more about what may have been said in a Senate inquiry and the airline industry and competition. I mean, this is an issue now for the ACCC, surely, to research now whether or not the discussion that was made by the Minister, Catherine King, what Anthony Albanese also knew about it, and if he didn't know about it, why such an important decision about the airline industry of, say, Qantas having a competitor in Qatar, flights for Qatar being increased in Australia. Did Catherine King or Anthony Albanese or the government, any other member, did they speak to Qantas at any time about Qantas's view on Qatar coming in? And I think that Qantas would no doubt have lobbied the government at some point. That's what the Senate inquiry needs to investigate in this particular discussion. And the reality is that Qantas is one of the brands that has lost a lot of support at a corporate level, but also the average Australian. I mean, they've been involved in ideological politics. We've seen that through the marriage debate, and now we're seeing it through the Indigenous referendum into the constitutional change. And I think that Qantas should fly its planes and make sure that they're safe and get us from A to B and do the best it possibly can in that regard. The government needs to make sure that as much competition is in the marketplace in Australia, but also if there is an issue with Qatar Airways and the way in which body searches have been conducted, they need to be individually investigated, and then a decision should be made. Now, if that's been made already by Catherine King in the national interest, apparently that's in the national interest, then that we need to get the information, and a Senate inquiry should be done quickly, not slowly.
A Flow News 24 update.